as well as the third meeting starting from tomorrow. Shrimati Lily Pandeya ji will then give us more details of the entire gamut of activities and events and themes of the upcoming meeting. This will be followed by the question and answer session. So I request all of you that before asking the question, please introduce yourself and also kindly put your cell phones on silent mode. Now I hand over the dais to Secretary. Sir, over to you.
Good afternoon. Welcome to Hampi, where the third meeting of the Cultural Working Group under India's G20 presidency is going to take place from today, that is the 9th of July, till the 12th of July. You are all aware that we have already had two meetings earlier. One of the first meeting was held in Khajuraho, and the second was in Bhubaneswar. The Khajuraho meeting was attended by about 50 delegates from the various G20 countries, the 9 guest countries, the international organizations who are associated with this process. And then about 45 odd people attended the Khajuraho meeting. Here again, we are expecting about 50 participants from all of these countries and multilateral organizations. We have had a fairly good run in the Culture Working Group so far. Apart from the two meetings that we have held, we have also done 4 global thematic webinars. And this would be one of the few groups under the overall format who have followed up the discussions in the meetings through these webinars. And these webinars have been very successful because all the 29 countries and the 6 or 7 multilateral organizations have all participated. So now we are set for our third meeting. Let me tell you where we stand today with regard to the themes that we had chosen for the Cultural Working Group. So as I have told you a number of times earlier, there were 4 themes, but today I wish to delve a bit deeper into what kind of progress we have made in bridging the different opinions and towards evolving a consensus. So the first theme was protection and restitution of cultural property. This, as you know, is very important for a country like India. You are also aware that there is a 1970 convention of the UNESCO which enjoins upon all the signatory parties to voluntarily return those artifacts belonging to other countries which have either been taken there because of the colonial plunder or because of post-colonial misappropriation through smuggling and theft and other such means. So we have discussed the 1970 convention extensively among all the countries, and there are some countries who are not signatories so far. We are trying to develop a broad consensus that all these G20 countries at least should become signatories to the convention, and certainly India would be a big gainer from this process. Bilaterally also, we are working with countries like the United States. If you've seen the joint statement of the Honorable Prime Minister's visit to the United States recently, there is a mention about a cultural property agreement between India and the United States, wherein the United States will do everything within the government's power to intercept smuggled goods at the borders and return them expeditiously. Because of the efforts of our media, some of these artifacts which were illegally sent to certain museums in the United States, that was highlighted, and those artifacts plus some other artifacts which have been recovered are also on their way to us. We expect to get about 150 such artifacts from the United States over the next 3 to 6 months, which would be nearly 50% of all the, more than 50% of all the artifacts that have been returned to India since independence. So this issue of restitution of cultural property, both bilaterally as well as through G20, is gaining traction. And we are happy to report that we will have some, consensus, some broad-based agreement on how this whole process has to be taken forward. The second subject is harnessing living heritage for a sustainable future. Here we are talking about protection of indigenous languages. We are talking about safeguards against misappropriation of traditional practices. So as we are all aware, for India at least, one of our traditional practices is Ayurveda. And a lot of products are patented on the basis of our Ayurveda knowledge, and billion-dollar industries get created without any benefit to the original practitioners. So the basic point here is that the practicing communities or practicing individuals should be benefited from any kind of commercialization of living heritage. And the third point is promotion of cultural and creative industries and the creative economy. Here we have basically, we are stressing upon creating some mechanisms through which we can understand the kind of cultural footprints which are getting collected at various cultural, let's say either monuments or cultural spaces or cultural practices. And on that basis, how do we develop a creative economy? We have done a very big Lambani exhibition here in Hampi. I'll talk about it in a minute, which feeds into this theme. The fourth big theme is basically the digitization and use of digital technologies for promotion of culture. Here, as we know, the entire culture world is now going digital through AR, through VR, through haptics, through immersives. We need to create mechanisms among countries which allow for interoperability in these practices. So VR technology, which is being used in, let's say, France, to make available or enhance the value or enhance the visibility of their cultural masterpieces. There should be a mechanism to share that with other countries, with a country like India, for instance, so that people here also can partake of that experience. So these are the kind of discussions that we are having. And through the first two meetings and the 4 global thematic webinars, there is a fair bit of consensus, and we hope that this would be one of the groups which will evolve languages that are more synchronous rather than voices which appear to be in disagreement with each other. We are also doing exhibitions at all the places which tie into these themes. The first exhibition at Khajuraho was based around restitution of cultural properties. The second exhibition at Khajuraho was based around the harnessing, was based around harnessing living heritage. Here we have an exhibition based on textiles, which feeds into creative and cultural industries. And finally, in Kashi, we'll have an exhibition around digital technologies and how they play a significant role in culture. The CWG provides an invaluable platform for fostering mutual understanding and collaboration among member nations. We have developed a theme called Culture Unites All, which grew spontaneously in the first meeting at Khajuraho. And all the countries came together to endorse that motto of Culture Unites All. So this we regard as a very significant achievement of this group. And we hope to have that same spirit carried on in the meeting in Hampi and later on the final meeting in Varanasi. As I told you, an exhibition called The Woven Narratives is being organized here, and it will be available at the Hampi Art Labs. I hope our team will be able to show you that, because that's our next engagement. And they are invited for that?
Yeah, for a preview of the
for a preview of the exhibition. The exhibition's theme is reflective of our third priority, which is the promotion of culture and creative industries. It will feature textiles from different parts of India. It will narrate their diverse histories, and it will exhibit their visual and material features. Delegates will preview the exhibition, explore the Hampi group of monuments, which is a UNESCO World Heritage Site. And this is again something very significant about the Culture Working Group, that we have done each of our meetings against the backdrop of a magnificent UNESCO World Heritage Site. So Khajuraho, and then Konark, and now Hampi. And the other working groups vie with each other to use these as the backdrops for their meeting, whereas for us, this is a natural destination. Our delegates will also experience the famous coracle ride in the Tungabhadra River. And thereafter, as I told you, there is a world record being set here for the largest display of Lambani items. My colleague Lily Pandey will explain this to you further as to what is so special about this Lambani embroidery, etc. So I'll reserve that for her. And so these are the basic sort of highlights of this meeting. We are now getting into the last phases of our culture working group, where we have to evolve joint statements among all the countries. And our focus increasingly is now going to be on that. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, sir, for the detailed briefing. Now I hand over the dice to Srimati Lily Pandya ji for her remarks and also for details on the Lambani embroidery work.
Good afternoon, everyone. Ellarigu namaskara. So this is something that I was asked by Nanu ma'am to say, and here I have done it. As Secretary Sir explained to us, this is the third Culture Working Group meeting that we have gathered here for. And this meeting is seeing an attendance from all of our 20 countries, including India, as well as the 9 dialogue partners or the guest nations, as well as the 7 international organizations which form the membership of the Culture Working Group of India's G20 presidency. In this meeting, we are primarily trying to arrive at the consensus and arrive at the language of the Culture Ministerial's declaration, which would be reflective of all the discussions that we have had. We've had a very intensive engagement among the membership since the beginning of the Culture Working Group process, through the 2 meetings as well as the global thematic webinars, as has already been indicated. One thing I may add is that we are also trying to come out with a report, sir, of the global thematic webinars, which will be launched during the Culture Ministers meeting in Varanasi on the 26th of August this year. And that would be our last meeting. That is where we are pretty hopeful of having a robust declaration with action-oriented, tangible outcomes. We felt right in the beginning that culture needs to be given its due importance and situated at the heart of policy making, and G20 provided us with a very good forum to do that. This is also the time, apart from the significant kind of time that we are experiencing in India with Azadi Ka Amrit Mahotsav, with the Amrit Kal, it is also extremely important time globally for culture, with the discussion on post-2030 Sustainable Development Goals agenda, where the world is moving towards having culture as an independent goal in and of itself. So we are hoping that with a kind of engagement in the Culture Working Group of India's G20 presidency, we may be able to inform the future global policies in the culture sector. As regards the as Secretary Sir just explained, that at all the 4 Culture Working Group meeting venues, we have tried to pick up a theme. We have 4 priorities, and we are trying to walk the talk in terms of having an exhibition which explains, which captures what we are trying to attain in the conversations with the G20 membership on the particular topic. So as far as Hampi is concerned, this is our third working group, and therefore the spotlight is on culture and creative industries and creative economy. The essence of this theme is basically to capture the economic weight of the culture sector, because most of the culture sector is still in the informal sector, and therefore it has not been the entire extent of the contribution of creative sector in GDP has not been effectively captured, because we don't have standardized mechanisms or aligned definitions as to what comprises culture sector. So we are in the working group trying to come to an aligned mechanism and consensus. Now here we thought that we should do two things. One is the exhibition that Sir spoke about, which is Woven Narratives, which talks about the hand-woven textile traditions of India. Now, we all know that we have very diverse and very rich textile traditions. You go to any part of the country and you have a very distinctive textile tradition of that part. So hopefully you'll enjoy the exhibition over here, and we'll be able to showcase cross-section of hand-woven textile traditions in this exhibition. The second thing we are trying to do is to create a world record. Now, this area is inhabited by the Lambani community. There is a Sandur Kala Kendra, which is a society, which employs the Lambani women. And the women do this very special Lambani embroidery. So this record is about largest number of Lambani embroidery patches created. So we are trying to, right now as we speak, an installation is being put up in the Yeduru Baswana complex opposite the Virupaksh temple in Hampi, which is where tomorrow we hope to get set the world record, Guinness World Record. The significant part is that these patches have been embroidered entirely by women. And it speaks to the creative industries and the economic empowerment of women. These are also the marginalized community, the Lambani community. So and since they are locals of this area, we thought it would be a very good idea to talk about this beautiful, distinctive form of embroidery. And this is what we are trying to achieve through this Guinness World Record. Because once you get a world record, or once you get a UNESCO tag, you start talking about it and start looking at it. And therefore, it might actually help these women to increase their potential of livelihood and encourage more people to participate in such enterprises, cultural and creative enterprises. Apart from the consensus that we'll try to achieve in terms of the language of the Culture Ministerial Declaration, which would be the focus for the next 2 days during the conversations. We will also, of course, give the delegates, like we have endeavored in the previous 2 meetings, to give them a snapshot of the area, of the local culture, of cuisine, of the beautiful landscape. And Hampi has such a dramatic landscape and so many things to offer. And so these are the things that we are trying to do this time. There is also going to be Coracle Ride, which is a special feature of this area. So I hope our delegates enjoy that. And I hope all of you are able to also see all the things that we are trying to do and highlight them when you write or talk about what is happening in the Culture Working Group. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Shrimati Lily Pandya ji. Now we move on to the question and answer session. Kindly raise your hand if you have a question and introduce yourself before asking the question. We can start with the local media. Anybody is having a question? No. Okay. Yes, Divya, would you like to ask the question?
in ancient period to present period in India, member of traditionals, not only Lambani. Lambani also one of the main tradition, and is embroidering work is famous. So other traditions, what is the benefits in giving to third cultural G20 program?
So this is what I was trying to say, that one of our priorities is basically harnessing the living heritage for a sustainable future. What it means is that wherever there are these kind of traditions which have been neglected or which are forgotten, then there should be an attempt to revive them, and that is a simpler part. The more difficult part, which we are trying to achieve through this Lambani exhibition, is that how do you create a cultural industry around traditions which are not yet, which have not been commercially leveraged to that extent. So Lambani is only an example of what we are trying to do. But through G20, we are trying to develop some mechanisms by which every country, because G20 is a multilateral forum, it is not restricted to India. Every country has these kind of living heritage and living traditions and cultural industries. So how can countries leverage their cultural traditions and cultural industries to make them more commercially profitable so that the craftsmen can derive benefit out of them? Culture Ministry does a lot of work. For instance, there is a Dokra art, which is very, which is very popular among the tribals of Chhattisgarh and Jharkhand and Odisha. So we are, there is now a serious danger that the next generation of the Dokra artists are losing their grip on this art. So in this area of Chhattisgarh, Jharkhand and Odisha, we are organizing a number of camps, a number of workshops, a number of refresher courses, so that the intergenerationality of this Dokra art is maintained and it's not lost. This is another example. We are working with the creative industries of Kashmir. We have done a number of programs for that. So all over the country, we are trying to ensure that these creative industries do not die, but they are better commercially leveraged. And through this G20, we are trying to develop some broad multilateral understanding and consensus.
Sir, another one question, sir. First one is Khajuraho to last one is 26th August to Varanasi. Is the main agenda of in India program G20?
Sorry?
First one is Khajuraho to August 26th, last one Varanasi. G20 programs all more closer to Varanasi August 26th. It's a total program, main agenda.
Main agenda, I told you there are 4 topics that we have taken up.
Third
There
one,
is-
sir, please.
There is a restitution of cultural property, then harnessing living heritage, then creative and cultural industries, and leveraging digital technologies. Main agenda is to develop the global consensus on what is to be done in these 4 areas.
Okay, thank you, sir.
Yes.
Sir, I'm Balakrishna from Prajavani. How many Lambani artisans will help from this G20 in Karnataka, especially in Karnataka? How many?
So around 450 artisans were involved in creating these more than 1,300 patches, which will be displayed for the Guinness record. And they are all engaged by the Sandur Kala Kendra, which brought together all these people to work on this project in order to create a Guinness record. I hope that was the question. Thank you. Aman Divya wants to ask a question too.
So you mentioned the first priority, which is restitution.
Where we will have in their museums, etc., artifacts that have gone from India over the last 300, 400, 500 years. So we are pursuing both bilateral and multilateral routes. Why I mentioned the US is because our diligent efforts have finally taken us to a place where this whole thing has become part of the language of the Prime Minister's joint statement. We are not there yet with respect to the other countries, but with the US having accepted this kind of a framework, we are hopeful that the other countries will also look at something similar, if not identical.
So, additional question. You also mentioned that 150 artifacts are expected to come back from the US in the next 3 to 6 months. So, is there a detail of does these also include the artifacts from the Met that were?
Yeah, this includes the artifacts which the Met is now willingly giving to us. The exact number, we don't have clarity as far as the Met is concerned. Your paper reported about 150 or 175, I don't recall the exact
16
number.
they said they have returned.
So 15 is what they are willing to return in the first lot. But the others are what was confiscated already by the US authorities, and they are lying with the New York Attorney General's office, and we are making efforts to have our team go there, verify them, and then bring them back.
Sure, thank you.
Sir, myself Venkatesh from Nadu ETU groups. My question is, what output you are going to expect by conducting G20 summit in Hampi only? Because so many heritage sites are there in Karnataka. That's Aivole, Pattadkallu, Badami. What is your main intention to conducting G20
Because
summit in Hampi only?
Hampi is the most famous of these sites. You should know that more than us. I mean, Hampi is definitely the biggest UNESCO World Heritage Site in Karnataka. The Hampi group of monuments, it's not just one monument.
What you are going to expect from this G20 summit? By only Hampi only.
The Hampi, because Hampi is, to our mind, the most famous UNESCO World Heritage Site in Karnataka. What we are going to expect is that people will come and see what a great kingdom used to flourish here in the 16th and 17th century, not even 500 years back. The normal thinking is that we were sort of enslaved during that period by various sort of dynasties, etc. The people who come here will see that in that period also there was an independent kingdom which had trade links with most of the world, which was very rich, which was very, very wealthy, prosperous, which had great kings. So we are wanting to showcase the most spectacular parts of our heritage through these G20 meetings. We are wanting to show to the world those facets of India which have somehow not been exhibited to that extent. So that is the whole purpose.
Thank you.
Anybody else? Okay.
Namaste. I am from All India Radio. My name is Purnima. I want to ask one question. Cultural activities also concerned like music and drama artists and folk artists also. So, what are the plans for that in your G20?
Thank you so much for this question because we really didn't touch upon this. So thank you for the question and giving us the opportunity to tell you that we are trying to showcase the very rich music traditions and dance traditions of India through the cultural programming that happens in and around these culture working group meetings. So here also we shall have tomorrow itself a performance by Vikku Vinayakam and his group of percussion artists, as well as dancers at the famous Vittala temple. Day after tomorrow, we are doing some light and sound show at the Yaduru Baswana complex, which is right opposite the Virupaksh temple, as well as a performance by the troupe of Raja and Radha Reddy, talking about Hampi. And it is based on the development of Hampi as right from the time of Kishkindha, the famous Bali Sugriv and Hanuman, birthplace of Hanuman, to its evolution over a period of time, and then, of course, the establishment of the Vijayanagar Empire, and so on and forth. So we always do that. In Odisha, in Bhubaneswar, when we went, we tried to have performances of Gotipua and other local folk art as well as classical art forms. Similarly, in Khajuraho, and we wish to do the same thing when we go to Banaras. So we always make sure that the local traditions, folk traditions, as well as the classical art forms of very rich tapestry of Indian dance and music are also displayed to the delegates of the G20. And we highlight these traditions and encourage people to have a wholesome experience. Thank you.
Ma'am, once again I want to clarify. Here are more and more artists are here, ma'am. Mariamanahalli, like Mariamanahalli, in Mariamanahalli place, drama artists are famous. It is very famous for drama artist. What is the opportunity from this G20 groups? And Burra Katha also an folk item from here, ma'am.
See, G20 is not a group, please understand, it is not a group for promoting Indian arts and culture. That is something which Culture Ministry does. We have 7 zonal cultural centers which promote all kinds of indigenous, folk and classical art forms in drama, in dance, in music. We have 3 academies, the Sangeet Natak Academy, Sahitya Academy, Lalit Kala Academy, which promote performing arts, visual arts and the literature. We have various other autonomous institutions. The National School of Drama is there, the Indira Gandhi Center for Arts is there. So all that work is done by the Culture Ministry through these institutions. Your question, how G20 will help in promoting arts? G20 is not for promoting Indian arts. G20 is for developing consensus around issues relating to culture. I have explained 2 or 3 times what are the topics that we have taken, and in at least two of these topics, the issue of these cultural practices and cultural industries is being taken up to evolve consensus on what is to be done globally to give them a fillip and to encourage them. Right, so that is the only answer to your question that I can give. Apart from that, your specific questions are taken care of by Ministry of Culture. It's not part of G20.
Next, one more question, sir.
I'm Aisha from DD News, Bangalore. So what are the efforts or the discussions with regard to post-pandemic, because even the culture industry was badly hit during the pandemic crisis. So what have been the deliberations so far in the previous meetings with regard to mobilization of resources so that those related to the culture industry are benefited? How have the G20 countries viewed this so that there is equal access to the cultural economy and other sources, because the artists, even the caretakers of the monuments were badly hit?
Well, that's exactly right. And thank you again for this question. You may remember that the Culture Working Group is a very new working group. It was instituted only 3 years ago. Ours is just the 3rd presidency. And culture and tourism working groups came into existence in the G20 system in the aftermath of the pandemic, because there was a global recognition of the fact that culture sector needs to be taken up in a multilateral grouping as strong as the G20, because this sector had suffered a lot during the pandemic. So, some of the issues that we are trying to raise here, especially, for instance, in our third, priority area, promotion of culture, industries, and creative economy, status of culture practitioners is a very important aspect of discussion, because we know that the culture practitioners suffered a lot in the aftermath, during the pandemic and in the aftermath of the pandemic. So we are trying to formalize this sector and realize the economic weight of the sector so that it can attract more investments, and we can ensure that traditional art forms and economic enterprises based on those creative art forms are able to sustain themselves and are able to contribute not only in terms of sustaining themselves, but also make a very positive contribution to the GDP. And so this is the entire crux of what we are trying to do in terms of arriving at a consensus within the G20. So the entire culture group, the culture working work stream within G20 is because of this realization that pandemic really hit the culture sector pretty hard globally.
Right. In terms of digital technology, could you just elaborate on how you're going to apply this? How there are deliberations and discussions across G20 countries? Because there are certain countries within the G20 group also which need a helping hand in terms of sharing technology, digital technology, and India is ahead with its all the flagship programs that the government has launched. So is there any access pool for those countries?
See, pooling and all is a little difficult to talk about, but some of the recognition of some of the issues, like the digital divide, for instance, the fact that there are large sections, cross sections of population world over who do not have access to digital platforms and digital ecosystems to develop their content, culture content. So these are the things that we are trying to work towards. The focus in this priority has been to identify the gaps, to share best practices, and to see how all of us can collectively benefit from sharing the experiences as far as the use of digital technologies is concerned for promotion and preservation of culture. So this is the focus as far as this priority area is concerned. And in today's day and age, it is not possible to make any meaningful advance or progress without leveraging the digital technologies. So it was only natural that our working group under India's presidency should have picked up this topic. And given especially since India has made very big strides in the field of developing proper digital ecosystem. Hopefully, after we are done with the G20 deliberations, if you permit me, sir, I may say that we are trying to develop a digital platform for culture sector, a digital product for culture sector also, which can help the culture practitioners leverage technology and access digital infrastructure for promotion of their skills and for sustainability of their skills, as well as with the attendant economic benefits. Thank you.
Thank you. So with this, we come to the close of the media briefing. I thank the dignitaries on the dais for sharing the details and insights about the culture working group in great depth. And I also thank all of you for joining the briefing. Kindly, there is high tea arranged outside. I request all of you to come and join the high tea. Thank you very much.